Hey everybody, welcome back. HSC Podcast 85. Got Big Box Steve on the mic, Big Smooth, and Fresh Wes. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and like. I'd love to hear some comments. Anything you want us to talk about regarding NCAA football or NFL. That's what this season's all about. So leave anything in the comments. Talk about last week's college football and NFL updates. Quite a few things happening. So this should be a busy podcast here with all the recent stuff going on and um, the release of the college football playoff rankings. Trade deadlines, coaches, things like that. So we're going to get into it all today. Uh, First, we got a trivia question for you guys. So you can't Google on this one. So I'll give you a second to think about it. Up to this point in the NFL season, which teams have the least amount of offensive yards? Top five.
Raiders. Um,
Panthers.
Right. I gotta pull it back up here. Let's see. Okay, so top five. Raiders, Wes's pick. They are not in the top five as far as least amount of yardage.
They just can't score.
Derek said Panthers. That's number four. Panthers are number four.
Steelers.
Steelers are number one, least amount of yards this season. Keep guessing. Keep guessing. You get it eventually if you guess all the teams.
Patriots.
Patriots are not. Patriots are surprisingly
Browns.
not. Browns also are surprisingly not.
Oh.
Arizona.
Arizona's middle of the pack, believe it or not.
All right.
The Bears.
The Bears are not either. The Bears are actually right up there above the Cardinals. I think they're in like 12th or something like that. 15th. Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple teams on here. There's one team you should get. They're a very heavy defensive team. They're AFC team. Two teams
Jets.
related.
The Jets.
There you go. Yeah. Jets are number two, right? I mean, obviously losing Aaron Rodgers being the season didn't help them. And there's another one related to Aaron Rodgers.
Packers.
Packers are number five. But the hardest one to get on this list, which I would have never guessed it in a million years. Well, I mean, if you give me 32 tries, I guess I would get it. One more guess each. Let's hear it.
I'm trying to remember all the teams.
Baltimore. Cincinnati.
There it is. Cincinnati Bengals.
Because they were so bad early.
They were so bad.
Right. And they came up actually to number three. Worst. They were at one point the worst, the lowest in yards, which I mean, you're looking at Burrow and Chase and Mixon and T. Higgins and Boyd. Like, how do you go be at the bottom of offense? So that was an interesting one. I had a hard time with that. I got the Jets right off, Panthers right off. The other three were pretty hard: Steelers, Bengals, and Packers. Because you would think teams like Arizona, the Giants, the Patriots, the Bears, the Raiders, like all those teams I would put up there, or you'd think would be up there. All right, well, let's talk college football first here. Looking at last week's there wasn't a lot of big games, but there was a couple real important ones, right? So let's just start off with the Oregon and Utah game. I mean,
Statement.
Oregon dominates. I mean, that is a statement game, right? They only give up 6 points, no touchdowns. And then you go out and score 35 on a pretty good, historically pretty good as well, Utah defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that say for Oregon here going forward? I mean, I've heard claims from ESPN analyst Kirk Herbstreit saying Oregon's the one team he wouldn't want to play in the NCAA
No.
right now. Which, I'm not a huge Herbstreit fan, but it's interesting to hear that kind of analysis.
Yeah. And then other national analysts have said the same thing. They're the one team you don't want to play right now. They're the most complete team that's outside I think it was, you have who knows what's going on with Michigan. There's tons of,
Yeah.
and they haven't played anyone. Georgia still looks really good, but they haven't been challenged. Ohio State was challenged by Penn State, but Penn State has no offense. And then what has Florida State really played? Right.
Yeah.
They had the big game to start the season.
With LSU.
Yeah, beat a pretty good LSU team. But yeah, I think a lot of those teams, come up here at the end of the season. That's where a lot of these tests are going to come in for some of these top 5 teams. Even though Washington hasn't been playing well, I mean, you look at Washington at number 5, beat Oregon already, still undefeated, with a good chance to finish undefeated. And if they beat Oregon again in a Pac-12 championship, that's got to look like one of the top teams.
Oh, yeah. I think if Washington and Oregon win out and play again, whoever wins that is guaranteed to be one of the 4.
You would think so, right? I would think so.
Because I think between Ohio State and Michigan, one will be out.
Yeah, one has to lose. They play twice, technically, right? Most likely.
No, I think they do still do divisions.
Yeah, it's division. So whoever wins Ohio State, Michigan goes to the Big Ten championship, and they're going to play somebody from an inferior division.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Like, I don't get. Okay, I know it's going to change and stuff, but whoever thought of those divisions?
Right.
Let's put Ohio State, Michigan State, and Penn State all in the same side.
Right.
Yeah,
Wisconsin's over on the other side going, yes.
Yeah, totally. Because it's almost like Ohio State versus Michigan, and basically the winner is going to play Wisconsin. Like they're going to roll Wisconsin. So
should they even have divisions? Like, I mean, that's.
Well, I think what they're going to do is they're going to load the Pac-10 teams into the Wisconsin League.
Right.
Right. You're going to load all those teams, and I don't know, they'll change it, flip things around a little bit. But you're basically going to have West versus the East still.
Well, this is how bad it is. Right now, there's kind of a 4-way tie in the West, and it's Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, and Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Right.
Like Nebraska's like 4 or 5 and 3 or something.
Yeah. Can you imagine them playing Nebraska in the in the Big Ten championship?
Oh,
I mean, that would be sad. Like, well, that's what I'm saying. It'd be sad that if that would be your Big Ten championship, right? That's why this division thing, it needs either get rid of it or you have to balance it.
They're gonna, like I said, they should load most of the Pac-12 teams into the West. What's it called? What are the divisions? It's ridiculous what they're called. It's not even called It's called Legends versus Legends and something.
I don't know. This says West and East, so they might have changed it.
They might have changed that because it's so stupid.
Yeah, I think I remember when Nebraska first came over, I thought they had some weird name for it.
Yeah, they did.
They did. It was weird.
Yeah.
It's just a weird concept. I guarantee you that with all that money, they're going to change it. So.
Right. And
They're
then,
going to fix that problem.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you have a West division, you're going to put the West teams in it usually. So then you just have like what old Pac-12 versus Big Ten powerhouses.
Yeah.
Well, it's so weird even looking at what is West and what is East. So you have Michigan and Michigan State in the East, but Minnesota and Wisconsin in the West. Aren't they all like bordering each other?
Yeah, and they're like right on the same area line, right? But a lot of these teams are, to be honest with you. Like, I guess, you look at like Illinois, they're really not that far off of Michigan. Indiana, a little bit more west, but they're in the east.
Yeah.
Nebraska obviously is probably the furthest west of all those teams.
Right.
Purdue's in Indiana, Northwestern's in Chicago area.
Yeah.
So
I get it. Yeah. Illinois and Northwestern together, but yeah. So Purdue's in Indiana, but Indiana's in the East.
Right. So yeah, I think hopefully they do some restructuring that makes sense with the new teams joining, right?
Yeah.
I would love to
they
see
just go to like a no.
Right. No conferences. Best teams play, which
Mm-hmm.
makes the most sense. I guess the SEC still has conferences though too, right?
Yeah.
So we still have that same problem down there.
But I
At
don't know what's
least
going to
theirs are
happen
more
when
balanced,
Texas and Oklahoma. Yeah, because like in the East you have but I would say the West has usually been better. Alabama, LSU. Well, I guess it's about the same because Alabama and LSU are the two powerhouses in the West.
Right.
The East had Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, right?
Yeah. And Florida's had their up years. Tennessee's had their up years.
Yeah.
Same with like when you're talking Auburn and LSU and stuff, they've had up and
Yeah.
down years.
I
The
mean,
consistency.
Georgia just recently has been really good. Before that, they were good, but not.
Yeah. They're playing good teams, good players. Like a lot of good players out of Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. As far as, again, games last week, Oregon State, kind of shot themselves in the foot there. That's just a tough loss for them at that point in the season. But again, as I was saying last week, is that Arizona team's tough. That's
right.
That's a tough team to play. North Carolina, basically, last 2
They're
weeks
done.
is just throwing away their season. And then Colorado loses again.
And they gets their jewelry stolen too.
Yeah, add a little insult to injury. I guess that it kind of keeps pushing back that Colorado hype.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. It's like Dion has no tactfulness. He's basically goes out and reams and says, "I got to get new offensive linemen because mine suck."
Yeah,
he says that at a press conference.
Probably inspiring a lot of confidence into your kids there, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge fad, and it's looking pretty bad. And the more he talks, the more he sounds pretty doesn't know what he doesn't know what he's doing. You don't say stuff like that. There's a lot of things that have been said and done, and it's like, what are you guys doing? I mean, we knew that they weren't going to be like a 10-win team, but still, I mean, you gotta at least make a bowl game, don't you?
There's definitely been coaching deficiencies if you watch their games. just different situations, everything from play calling to clock management, to defensive schemes and those type of things where they're loaded with lots of good talent. Maybe not on the offensive line, but in other positions, tons of good talent, and so they're going to win games. But I do think that watching them this year has kind of, for me, put out a little bit of their coaching deficiencies across the board. And I
Well,
don't
I
know
think we
that you
just
can
can
make
say
up
that
that.
Dion's a great recruiter.
Right. Well, and
Yeah,
that's the advantage there.
yeah, they're going to the Big 12. It will be different next year. It's going to be, they'll be better next year. It's just they don't look good, and it's tough because not now you got Oregon State going down there to play them, and
Yeah.
Oregon State can't pull in Arizona what they did in Arizona. They got to go out there and you can't take any of these teams lightly.
No, they're going to run the ball, though, right down Colorado's throat because their defense is not good.
Imagine this, though. Like, you're talking about Colorado going back to the Big 12. Utah's going to run that conference.
Yeah. I mean, Texas, Oklahoma also
No,
leaving
they're
there.
gone.
Oklahoma's gone.
Texas and Oklahoma are going to the SEC.
Yep.
Yes, yeah, that's what I mean. With both of them going,
It's just going to
there's
be
nothing
Utah
there, right?
Yeah, I mean, Kansas is good, but Utah should be the best team in that conference. But I'm just saying, Colorado can be third or second in that
Yeah,
conference.
absolutely.
And at this point, when you have a 12-team playoff, you never know. You could get, you'll be like a 11 or 12 seed, but you can get in a playoff. And the Big
Will the
12,
Pac-2 have an automatic bid?
isn't that funny?
The fact
You're gonna have an automatic bid. That's hilarious. Better be Oregon State. You're gonna screw that one up.
The thing with Colorado that they will get good recruiting class next year, and that's definitely a benefit to them going forward. I mean, there's so much NIL money that's going to come into that program, at least right now, that you're going to get recruits just for that reason as well. So I could see them getting some big time recruits and
but I don't know if you're going
getting
to
a lot
get
better.
I don't think you're going to get the offensive and defensive linemen though.
That's the trouble is, because if you're offensive defensive line, you want to stay SEC because that's how you get to the pros.
Or like Ohio State,
Michigan, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Offensive line, Wisconsin, Notre Dame has been big with offensive linemen.
So it'll be interesting to see their recruiting next year and how they fare in the Big 12. I think the Pac-12 this year's kind of gone how we thought it would go, even though there was a lot of hype around it. You kind of knew that, well, this is reality.
Well, you still got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 Pac-12 teams in the top 20 in the rankings.
Right.
For some reason, USC is 20th. There's still
crazy.
I
mean, I guess USC is the last game to talk about here before we go to next week's games, but I mean, you pull out a 1.50 to 49 win against Cal. And you had to score 21 in the fourth to do it. I mean, I can't see USC as a top Pac-12 team right now.
Well, we'll find out this week when they play Washington at home because,
right.
I mean, Washington should win the game, but still, when USC's putting up 50, right? Their defense can't stop anybody. We know that.
Yeah.
But still, it's crapshoot when you think about it, because Washington looks a little sketch on offense. Their defense
They're struggling a little bit.
They give up 33 against Stanford. I mean, they don't look right now. So that's going to be a big game.
Well, yeah,
I
I
still
mean,
think
looking,
Washington's probably going to win, but I mean,
yeah, I mean, looking at next week's games, that's obviously a big one because I mean, if USC, they still want to have a good season, so that they go to 7-3 right there, they drop out of the top 25. That's not a good look for USC. So it is still an important game for them. And Washington, like you can't lose this game. Like if you lose this game, you're putting yourself in trouble to finish the season. But I guess Washington, even one loss won't hurt them that bad because they still have to win out and then
yeah,
play Oregon anyway.
they
So
hold the tiebreaker with Oregon. They just win
right,
out, and they're going to play each other anyways to figure
right,
out who goes.
But that will still hurt because if you have both teams with one loss, it hurts like then you could be like, well, Michigan and Ohio
right.
State.
Both have one
Well,
loss to each other. Yeah, I mean, it definitely hurts the playoff chances for Washington if they do come try to get in with one loss for sure. I think Oregon already hurt themselves with that same thing by
yeah,
But I
losing to
think like the
Washington.
national media looks at it as Oregon won that game, but they threw it away.
Right. Yeah, I mean, still the loss on the record, right?
Yeah.
Which I think that's tough for them. But I do think that matters, like you're saying, when it comes to the end, if you have these undefeated teams or even the one-loss teams, when you start talking about an Oklahoma or a Texas or a Ohio State or a Michigan, uh, an Alabama, right? Like all these things are going to come into play later.
What happens if Alabama wins out, beats Georgia in the SEC championship? Are we going to keep Georgia out?
Well, that's what I mean. So now you get to a
yeah.
one-loss Georgia team.
That's the problem here. It could turn into a real mess, big mess, if those things happen.
Yeah, so a loss definitely doesn't help a Pac-12 team right now. Like they have
No,
to.
Obviously, Air Force, if they win out, should be in.
Yeah, you got to put Air
dude,
Force up there.
Air Force runs a triple option. That's
Yeah,
all that matters.
that's awesome. Uh, and speaking of next week, also like so we got that USC Washington game, but then you've got like Georgia's first test, right? So they're playing Missouri. Who Missouri's not the greatest team in the world, but they're ranked 12
Yeah.
and 7-1.
Missouri's talented. They got some skill guys. They're kind of sneaky good. Georgia should not take them lightly. You never know.
I
You
mean, you're
know.
giving Georgia 15.5 in that game.
Yeah, it's a lot. A lot, and you're missing your best player, Powers. You don't have
Yeah,
Powers at all. Like,
yeah. I don't know if I trust that line, but I mean, I think Georgia will still probably win that game because it's in Georgia, right?
yeah,
Yep.
So, but that's still a big game. I think again, I think this is the first time they've played a top 15 team, right?
probably.
So this is
Well,
this is definitely a test for Georgia, and especially if Bowers isn't playing.
let's see. Yeah, they haven't played.
I think like their toughest game, I feel like, was like Auburn.
Yeah, they beat Auburn by 7. Yeah, I think Kentucky was ranked when they played them, right?
Right. I think Kentucky was around
And
20th
then
or
they beat
something.
Kentucky 51-13.
Yeah.
And then they beat,
Yeah.
Vanderbilt 37-24 to 43-20. So
They're definitely winning games, convincingly when they need to.
South Carolina, they only won by 10. But yeah.
So that, I mean, it is like I said, it's a top 15 team, a team with a good record. So I guess you would say, this is kind of Georgia's first test of the year.
Yeah,
Um,
Georgia's got Missouri, who's 14, or then Mississippi, who's 11, and then Tennessee, who's 19. So
yeah, and then the SEC championship.
Well, then Georgia Tech, and then the SEC championship.
Yeah, if they win out, right?
Yeah. So
So
all their
that's
harder
tough,
games are at the end of the year.
right? So we're gonna find out a lot about Georgia in the next 4 weeks.
Yep.
Oklahoma, just real tough loss last week. Now they go play Oklahoma State. So you got number 9 and number 22 there. That should be an interesting game. Oklahoma State's running game is good, solid, and I don't know how well Oklahoma will defend that. And then LSU Alabama. So that's the other big game. So LSU's 14, Alabama's 8. It's in Alabama, in Tuscaloosa. Daniels is playing really well. A lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns, a lot of interceptions. How does this game look on paper? Like, does Alabama win this? Because Alabama has not looked strong in their wins.
LSU beat them last year, and I think Alabama. I mean, Alabama. I think playing at home, and after what happened last year, I think they do win, but it's gonna be a good game. They're gonna really have to. They're gonna have to really contain Daniels in that offense a little.
Yeah.
You can't just
Well,
let. It can't be a barn break. If they get into a shootout, LSU's gonna win.
right.
I mean, so the defense is gonna have to play better than they did last year because I don't think Alabama. I think Alabama's still quarterback. They're still not right offensively. So
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm sold on their quarterback yet. They're still Alabama, so they still have a lot of talent, on both sides of the ball. But I agree. If this gets into a high scoring game, I think Alabama could definitely lose this game. I don't think that's what you want against LSU for sure.
no.
You get neighbors out there he could go for 200 yards. Let's see, yeah, Oregon State, Colorado, Kansas, playing. I mean, there's not really any other big games there. Kansas State, Texas. I guess that's still kind of a big game for Texas. Kansas State's 6-2.
And
You
they're
know,
always sneaky.
yeah, and I mean they're 4-1 in the Big 12, so they're right there now with the Oklahoma loss. So that's a big game for Texas.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is Ewers back? I know he was hurt for a while.
Well, I don't think he's back yet, but maybe I don't know.
No, I mean because that makes that tougher for them. He's a big part of their offense. It doesn't say if
It
he's
says the
back or not.
backup Murphy in line to start against Kansas State. Malik Murphy.
Wow. Yeah, that's I don't know. That might spell trouble for Kansas here or for Texas. I mean,
Why isn't Arch coming in? Come on, Texas.
I think they're redshirting him, right?
No,
Get him an extra year on the bench.
I don't know.
Like that's the thing is like, are these quarterbacks really going to stay 4 years? Come
Yeah,
on. But I think you get so many quarters you could play, so I think you can get like 7 or 8 quarters on your red shirt.
yeah. Get a little bit of time in. You could definitely play a little bit. Although he hadn't looked great at the beginning of the year anyway. I don't know if you saw any of his early camp games, but man, he was not looking solid.
He's a Manning. Just throw him out there.
You just expect big things, huh? So yeah, I mean that's where we're at college football right now. Um, this is a big week, but obviously the next coming 4 weeks here are really gonna spell out the season. Like a lot of these teams are hitting to their, the tough parts of their schedule, which is interesting how that's playing out. Then last, before we move from college football, what did you guys think of the actual college football playoff rankings that came out? And they got Ohio State at number 1.
I mean, it's too early for me. You have too many games left. It doesn't really matter. So if Ohio State wins out, sure, yeah, they'll be number 1, but still have to play Michigan.
Right.
So that's the thing. You got Michigan in the top 4 too, and the Washington is 5. So, but you can just win out, and then not every team can win out. So it's early for me.
Who would be your guys' number 1 in the college football ranking right now, the playoff ranking?
I'd probably say Ohio State right now, just because that win against Penn State, you just saw both sides of the ball. They were pretty dominant. Oregon's the hottest team to me, but they did take the loss against Washington. Washington's kind of sputtering. So yeah, right now, like Ohio State to me, just barely over Georgia and Michigan.
Yeah.
Is that a strength of schedule thing, or you just don't think Georgia and Michigan have played the competition?
Georgia and Michigan, they haven't really played. They haven't played a top 10 team. So, okay. But Ohio State, you just see the talent. You see the talent at a lot of positions. And then you got Marvin Harrison Jr., and that quarterback is playing better. He's starting to play better. But with those weapons, with Henderson coming back, I mean, they looked pretty good last season. He ran for 150 yards. Yeah, there's a lot of talent on that field with that team. So they kind of passed the eye test for me.
Yeah.
For me, I couldn't argue with Ohio State, but for me, I would say, come on, dude. Georgia's back-to-back champion. Yeah. How can you not have them number 1? They haven't lost a game. I know they haven't played as good as Ohio State, but how can you take the team that's won back-to-back championships and say, no, you're not number 1?
Yeah, and won 25 straight.
Yeah. To be the man, you got to beat the man.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, just because I do think that it's hard to take a back-to-back champ that's won 25 games in a row, has the number 1 ranking in the standard polls, and not put them as number 1 in the college football playoff ranking. That's kind of hard for me.
It's like Wes said, they're not looking at the names. Yeah. They're looking at what's happened, and Ohio State beat Penn State.
Right. Yeah, so strength of schedule. But so you look at Georgia, obviously can eliminate that with their next couple of weeks of games.
Right.
Yeah, and Florida State's interesting in there too, because they just don't play a hard enough schedule. There's just not enough good teams for them to play in the ACC. I mean, obviously,
except North Carolina just
right now that North Carolina's fallen off because they won't even. I mean, who knows how they're going to finish? But yeah, that's tough for Florida State. But you also got Washington here, okay? So Washington may not be playing right now as good as you'd want them to look on the eye test, but look, you already beat Oregon. You beat the number 6 team that everybody's saying is the best team, but yet you're undefeated. You beat a top 10 team, probably what looks like a potential playoff team. Why is Washington not up there?
Well, it's like what I said, though. They haven't looked good since. And it's the eye test. You win at home. That's one thing. It was a home game. So you give yourself like a 3 points, and that's what it was. It was a fluky game. If it's played on a neutral field, Oregon probably wins.
Yeah. But the Ohio State Penn State game that was played in Ohio State, and it
but it was
wasn't.
not close.
It was close all game. It was just that
Yeah, but
right at
the
the
score
end.
was close, but it wasn't.
Yeah, the Penn State, that it's a head scratcher because on one hand, Ohio State looked good. They did shut down Penn State. On the other hand, Penn State did shut themselves down. You know,
Right.
their offense was terrible. Their whole mindset was terrible. So still, you kind of have to put an asterisk next to that game. But I'm just saying, you just see. I mean, still, Ohio State's defense is good. They're better than they were last year.
Yeah, their defense has played well, and they played well in the Penn State game. It's again, I don't know. I'm not saying Washington should be better than Ohio State, but I just see that that's not a lot of respect to a team that, however the game finished, like they won the game against Oregon, right? So you've beaten one of the top teams in the country that everybody's looking at as a potential playoff team, and you're undefeated.
Yeah.
So there is something. I don't think there's just not a lot of respect going for Washington there.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, I give more credence to Florida State because they played LSU week 1.
Yeah.
They didn't
Early
play
game.
Cupcake University, and wait until you got to Oregon before you played a tough. And that's the thing is when you play a really tough team early, and who knows, sometimes it looks good and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that team lost 5 games.
Right.
But if you schedule hard clashes that early, I mean, what was Washington's?
There wasn't a lot of that this year in general, though. There wasn't a
No,
lot
it
of big
was
games across the board.
it was just Florida, Utah, and Florida State,
Right.
LSU. And
Right.
then the next week, Texas played Alabama.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those, but you typically you would see more of those kind of big games early. I just feel like we didn't see a lot of them this year.
Right.
But yeah, I'm so
I mean, Washington started off the season with Tulsa.
yeah. Well, I know every team has, like I said, this year I don't feel like a lot of teams played very tough schedules.
Right.
Um,
Although, okay, I'll give Washington credit. They did play Washington or Michigan State in their second games.
Yeah, that's not somebody you want on your schedule very often.
Yeah. I just think though it's right now Florida State. It's because Florida State's been ahead of Washington the whole year.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, it's hard. They may have been able to jump them after that Oregon game, but they didn't in the rankings. But you could have made an argument for it.
right.
But now that they're behind them, it's hard.
It's the whole adage when you start the season not ranked as high. I mean, Florida State was ranked high.
Right.
I don't think Washington was in the top 10 to start the season. So,
although I will tell you, looking at Washington's schedule, how they finish, if they win out, like you got to put them up. You got to start jumping past people, in that top 4.
It could be a huge mess because of that Florida State sitting there. Florida State has to be in because they're probably going to run the table.
Yeah, I can't see anybody beating Florida State at this point.
No, they're going to probably secure that 3 spot.
Yeah,
but yeah, it could be.
Although if Washington runs the table, they'll bump up to 3.
I mean, they have. You imagine they have to,
because they'd have to beat Oregon twice.
They have to beat Oregon twice. Yeah. So then Florida State probably 4.
Dude, right. I could see Washington moving up to like 2.
Yeah, I could too.
Yeah.
Depending, because Georgia, but they got a tough schedule, so it's going to be interesting. We'll see how this plays out. It could be either pretty easy or it could be a big mess. Like it's going to go one of 2 ways here.
Well, yeah, because you already know Michigan and Ohio State, one of them might knock each other out.
Right, they're going to. Like one of them has to knock the other one out because there's not much of a chance that they lose the Big Ten championship after their game, right?
Right.
So they knocked one out, then they're undefeated. They won their conference. They're obviously going, right. You got either Michigan, Ohio State, and the other one's bumped out. And you have the SEC winner always goes, right? I mean, that's there's no question about that.
Right.
So you got
if it's a one loss or undefeated team, I would think.
yeah. One loss or undefeated. I have a hard time thinking that any of those teams will win that with two losses, but I guess you never know. Um, so you get the SEC, you get the Big Ten, and then you got Florida State if they stay undefeated. Yeah, I mean, I definitely
I think Oklahoma shot themselves in the foot by losing this last week.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that hurt them a lot.
Yeah.
So okay, well, I mean, it's a lot of college football stuff happening there. Good thing to watch to the end here. Jumping over to NFL. Oh my gosh. So trade deadline, coaches. So let's talk about your coaches first. I mean, you guys are obviously happy with the decision for the Raiders to move on from their GM and their head coach.
Let me just say, so we want when we went, you're the Bears fan, so we went and we watched the game together. And it wasn't like I cared too much. I was watching the game, but I'm just thinking to myself, it doesn't matter. If they win, Josh McDaniels stays longer.
Yeah.
And so then they had that horrific game. And first off, you're like, okay, they made the decision to go with Brian Hoyer, which was the dumbest decision possible. So they come to the next week against the Lions. And Jimmy G, oh my.
Yeah, it was bad.
So bad. Did I send you guys the thing about him comparing him to Jamarcus Russell?
Yeah. Yeah,
But it was just bad. He's had some interceptions. You're like, what are you doing? And I think that was the nail in the coffin because McDaniels the whole time was like, oh, I need my guys to win. So we ship off Waller, we ship off Carr, we bring in Jimmy G, give him this huge contract, and he is horrendous.
Yeah.
And the team, yeah.
He's looked especially bad at Las Vegas. I mean, he's never been a great quarterback in my eyes, but he was always a game manager. Never had a strong arm, but he was fairly accurate for the most part. That's what surprised me the most when I watched him this year is the amount of balls he's throwing way off target, out of bounds, interceptions right to the defenders.
He's doing a bunch of YOLO throws. He just would throw it up, and you're like, what is he doing?
Closing his eyes and throwing the ball.
And I think that's when Mark Davis realized he's like, we were a playoff team with Rich Bisaccia as coach.
Yeah.
I bring in McDaniels. We go in. The offense is really good with Carr there, but we blow the 5 leads, the most ever in a season, and they miss the playoffs. Oh, okay. Then it's like McDaniels is like, oh, it's Carr's fault. Doesn't fit my system. So we get rid of him, bring in Jimmy G because that's my guy. And they've regressed so much. And I think Mark Davis finally is like, I've had enough of all this embarrassment.
No, and not only that, I think everybody that watched that Lions game, everybody that semi cared for the Raiders like I do, is I semi care for them because I've given up for years. I think there are people that got in his ear that said, you know what, you better do something real quick, or you are going to have a serious problem with the fan base, with people that have been around the organization for years that have supported, your dad. Somebody got in his ear and said, you better clean house tomorrow. And he did. Got rid of the GM, got rid of the coach, and then he basically Jimmy Garoppolo's on the bench for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And Aiden O'Connell's going to start, which is smart because you need to figure out what you have here with him. And not only that, Devontae Adams, I mean, you sit there and everyone in the NFL is saying, trade Devontae Adams. Everybody.
Free Devontae. I was like,
yeah.
Shut up, people.
And so that noise probably got to him too. He's like, no, let's try to salvage this for the most part and finish out the season with Aiden O'Connell.
And then,
I mean, in a terrible situation, that's the best they can do here. It's still a terrible situation because you really don't have a quarterback. Now you don't have a coach or a GM. And who really wants to sign up for all this crap? Like if you're someone that has a good reputation, even if you're in college, do you want to sign up for that? This Mickey Mouse type of franchise? It seems like they built a beautiful stadium and they got a celebrity that lights the torch every week and they get their ass kicked every week. Who wants to sign up for that? The pressure, they're going to be like the Cowboys. They're going to be so much pressure on them to win. You might as well just go to Jacksonville. Go to Cleveland. You don't have that type of pressure. They don't care over there. So it's still a bad situation, but it's better today because they did what they had to do.
Well, we're not even talking about Ziegler here because he was just as bad.
Yeah.
Let's give Carr a huge contract with a no trade clause and then dump him. So we get nothing out of a quarterback. Let's give Waller a huge extension and then trade him a week after his wedding. Let's give Hunter Renfrow an extension and then keep him on the bench.
Yeah.
And then let's draft Tyree Wilson, who has leg issues, and the tape had shown he doesn't come off the ball very fast.
Right.
How could they do that? When they drafted him, like, are you guys blind? Are you literally blind? You're going to draft him top 10 when you got all these other edge players? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's an edge league now. This guy wasn't even right physically.
I think they were. I mean, unfortunately, this has kind of always been the Raiders' MO. It's kind of like that boom or bust because, minus the injuries, athletically and physically gifts and skill wise, Tyree Wilson could be a great player, but he has too many other things, that are holding him back. And so it's kind of like I think the Raiders fell into the boom or bust. It could be the greatest pick ever. It could just not be a good pick.
But let's look at prior history. How many busts have they had in the last 10 years?
That's what I mean.
What do you think you should do there? There's all these edge guys right there, right for you to get. You need someone.
I will be quarterback. To be fair, at least it wasn't a what the F pick. Because lots of people, when they drafted him, were like, oh, that's such a good pick. It wasn't like taking Cleveland Farrell at 4. Right? It wasn't like taking Leatherwood in the first round. It wasn't like taking Garen Conley in the first round.
What was that receiver that they took? What was his name?
Darius Hayward Bay.
Darius Hayward Bay.
But dude, he played for like 12, 13 years.
Yeah. It's just weird. It's just they always do those type of picks though,
Right. Well, it's like Ruggs. Now, I think Ruggs is a whole different situation. But even that, you knew with him, he was just a deep threat. He wasn't Justin Jefferson. He wasn't Judy. He wasn't CeeDee Lamb. You know what I mean? Yeah. They could have had any of those guys, and they took Ruggs because he had speed.
Yeah.
Which even if Ruggs was still around, Jimmy G couldn't throw to him anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess, you look at what they're up for now, obviously probably turning in for this season. You're putting your rookie quarterback in.
I have more excitement, though. I'd actually care about watching the games now.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the biggest things if I'm watching that Lions game, or you saw all over the highlights and everything like that. When Devontae Adams goes to the sideline, he slams his helmet down, starts talking to himself, and then like in the locker room, the talking to the reporters doesn't go so well, right? Like you got to look at that and say, this our star player, right?
Yeah.
And if we don't do something now, you may lose him forever.
Well, and that's the other thing. It's like if you're watching that game, every year we've all said, if the Raiders only had a defense, yes, their defense gave up tons to Jahmyr Gibbs and stuff, but they were on the field for like 90% of the game.
Right.
And you look and you see Max Crosby out there, and you're like, they had 3 turnovers. They got 3 turnovers on the Lions, and it amounted to nothing except for Marcus Peters.
He actually got a pick 6 for once. I'm like, I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, what is this? What is happening here? Am I seeing a defensive player run in for a touchdown? Like, holy crap. I was excited. I was like, and then
And then besides the Bills and Bears games, the defense had played really well.
Right.
Now this game, the numbers don't look at it, but if you watched it, they just got gassed at the end.
Yeah.
Holy
because the offense, you're right. I mean, offense didn't help them at all because Jimmy G, the 3.7 quarterback rating, like Jahmyr Gibbs had more scrimmage yards than their whole team.
Right. Well, and then you know what? Josh Jacobs looked good in that game.
Yeah,
the little bit he got the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, the little bit. Yeah, and they're gonna have to change that going forward. Here is they're gonna have to run the rock.
Yeah,
and take some pressure off of O'Connell, and then get the ball to Adams. I mean, you got to see what you got here. I mean, this is a huge unknown. Like, it sucks for Adams because it's like he's like, yeah, he fired everybody. I'm still stuck here.
Mm-hmm.
You got Josh Jacobs. Like, what the hell am I doing here?
Well,
these are Pro Bowl players. It's like, I swear, Josh Jacobs the whole season has been running. It's like he's trying to run through a wall.
Now, on the bright side, though, because I think with what was going on and like listening to things, it was because Mark Davis went to like Crosby, Adams, Jacobs and said, hey, what's going on? What's this? So with him getting rid of McDaniels and Ziegler, that helps with bringing Jacobs back next year.
I think it helps the morale for sure when you come down and when you have players who feel like the coach isn't helping them be successful and is hurting them out on the field, and then you get rid of them. That definitely helps the team morale a lot.
Oh, and did you see, and did you probably not, but Antonio Pierce's press conference?
No.
Dude, he's awesome. He's like, I was born in Compton. We were wearing NWA. We're all about the Raiders. And then he starts talking about, and like people were getting pumped up, like, I'd run through a brick wall for this guy. And think about, man, Antonio Pierce, when he was in the NFL, he was a badass.
Yeah, he was. He was awesome.
So that's the thing. Now they got a swagger guy. Their head coach is interim head coach is a swagger guy.
Yeah.
Who knows about X's and O's? But Dan Campbell's not an X's and O's guy, right?
No,
he's not a motivator. McDaniels was never a motivator.
You can worry about that stuff later. Yeah, exactly. It's like Campbell is not that guy. Campbell's the guy that's going to get everybody to run through a wall. And the X's and O's comes from other guys. You can roll with this and see how this goes, but
you got to bring in good coordinators, though. That's the thing.
Yeah,
you could be a motivator guy, but I'll tell you what, Dan Campbell's offensive coordinator is good.
Oh, he's
real good. And so you look at the Bears problem, same thing. Even if you get rid of Eberflus, you don't get rid of the coordinator, you're still in trouble.
Well, it's not Eberflus's fault. It's the running backs coach.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Well, I don't think he was fired for that reason.
Did we even get
no, he wasn't. But remember, it said the standards
of our behavior.
Yeah, and no, there was probably, my guess is something in the locker room was said, that
Yeah.
is not politically correct. And these days, you
Oh,
got to
yeah.
be real careful what you
Well,
say.
here's my thing with Eberflus. He should be gone just because of that, plus his defensive coordinator. You're the head coach, and you have two people have issues, some kind of issues,
Yeah.
personnel-wise, personal. You need to go.
Dude.
Do you need to go based on record? I know. I mean, it could be. Do you make any other reasoning for him based on everything? When you don't win games, I mean, you've lost as many games as he's lost up to this point. You got to get rid of him. I mean, even Nagy, it was a horrible coach, was still winning games. Like, so you're not winning anything, and that's the problem. So you got to get rid of him. It's that
If
simple.
it was 1975, he would have lost. He would have been one of the first coaches to go lose every game in the season because it was only 14 games back then.
Right.
He was and he went on a streak. He was 0 for 14. That's
Yeah,
bad.
just the record since he came on. I mean, like I said, there's so many other issues with that, but like this is the NFL, and if you're not winning games, you need to get replaced.
And then I'm going to bring up GM again. Poles needs to be fired too.
Yeah.
The dude traded a second round pick for Chase Claypool. What's turned out to be Joey Porter Jr. Now he trades a second round pick for Montez Sweat, who's a great player, but he's also a free agent. So now you gave up your second round pick, which is going to be almost a first rounder, for a guy that you're going to have to spend so much money on now.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to resign him.
I don't mind, actually. I don't mind as long as he resigns, and even if he doesn't sign, they get a third compensatory back. So they're just losing.
They don't get anything back because
if he doesn't sign, they get a third.
I don't think so. Are you sure about that? Because he didn't start with the team that for the season.
No, it's the part of the deal. Like,
okay.
Yeah, look through the deal. I mean, that's what I was reading. So
I mean, then they just traded back for third round.
For a third round, right?
Yeah, but to have him for a team that's not going anywhere this year.
The idea, the hope is that they sign him for long term, because I do think that he could be a cornerstone of the defense, because he's not that old. He's got good experience. He's a good pass rusher. And if you could give him some help, right? I mean, you got, Knack on the other side. So your edges don't look so bad anymore. Your inside linebackers are decent. I don't mind the trade as long as we get him signed and he wants to be there for long term.
Yeah. Well, that's for me. The whole problem with me, what I was saying is now his agent's like, ha ha ha,
right,
because we can get overpaid here. And the fact
they're gonna overpay him. They're gonna overpay him. But they have the money to. So you know what? Just do it. That's the way sports goes sometimes. Right.
Well, and then what I think the biggest thing was he got fleeced because Chase Young went to the Niners for a compensatory third.
Right.
And we're talking end of the third round, not beginning of the second.
Well, I think the problem with the Sweat trade was that Atlanta really wanted him too.
Oh, gotcha.
And I think the Commanders worked that deal. They're like, look, either give us a second or send him to Atlanta. You want him or not? And at that point, you got to make that decision, right? And do I think a high second is overpaying for him? Probably a little bit. I don't think it's terrible, because I do think he's a good player. I think people underestimate the value of a guy who's played 5 years, who doesn't miss any games, who has good sacks every game, and is a good solid player. Chase Young, he's talented, but the dude is hurt all the time.
Right.
So, and maybe that'll change in San Francisco, but at this point, Sweat looks like the better, more consistent player.
Right. The only problem you're not, if you're going with Fields over a rookie quarterback, you only got it like a year or so before you have to give Fields a huge contract.
Yeah. No, and they're going to be hurting, but they do have tons of cap, right? So they're not in a bad position with money for sure, but they will be as the couple years go by. Because you talk about Jalen Johnson, you talk about Fields, you talk about all these other guys.
If Jalen Johnson might be gone,
yeah,
he
but
has to be traded.
Maybe bringing Sweat in, and signing him to a contract will convince, hey, Jalen Johnson, say, okay, we're committed to defense. Maybe I will resign. Because that was all that trade stock was before the Montez Sweat trade. It's not as bad as I think it looks on the surface, but obviously, there was somebody available and they went for it. Poles' other decisions, there's a lot of decisions I've questioned up to this point. So if he got let go, I wouldn't be sad. I mean, once he got rid of Roquan, I was done with him. It's like, dude, why are you letting Roquan go? He's going to lead the league in tackles for the rest of his life.
Right.
So that was a tough one for me. And then the Claypool trade was crazy.
Considering you traded Roquan for a second, right?
Right.
But then you gave your better second for Chase Claypool.
Right. That was the problem. Yeah. And you got, Tariq Stevenson out of it. and then you cut Chase Claypool. So it didn't really work out well for you there. When you
didn't they get up? I thought, didn't they trade Claypool?
Oh yeah, they got like a sixth
fifth
or something. Yeah, it's like a sixth or something late. I don't know. So not a lot in return. So that was tough. But we'll see how this plays out with Sweat. Like I said, I'm not super worried about that. I'm more worried about what's happening on the coaching level right now. And I'd love to see something different happen.
McDaniels is available.
That would be the worst.
Like you've failed at 2 spots. You haven't lasted more than a year and a half at both spots, but we'll give you a chance.
Yeah, I don't know that he'll coach anywhere again.
Patriots offensive coordinator next year, and then Mac Jones makes the Pro Bowl.
That wouldn't surprise me. All right, well, let's jump into next week, or last week NFL games. Wes, you led the way 11-5. Derek, we were both 10-6. So not a terrible week, not our best week, but it wasn't as bad as the week before. That was a tough one. But a few games like really kind of threw it off that you thought would be winners, right? Like it was real hard. Like the Broncos Chiefs, that's a hard game to pick.
Right.
Oh, but I won. I did a parlay on it the last minute because I was making fun of Gabby, and I was like, no, you know what? I'll take the Broncos. And I was like, I did a parlay, and I actually won. But I bet on the Chiefs.
Yeah, and I think we all picked the Chiefs,
But I also didn't know Mahomes had the flu. I mean,
right, that was a game like an hour before the game. They were like, "Oh, right. Mahomes has the flu," and you're like, "Really?" And then it was supposed to be a snow game, but they stupidly plowed the field.
Yeah, there was no snow anywhere.
Yeah, that was that one, kind of throws you off. And then there's a couple coin flip games too that those are hard to pick, like Falcons Titans and Jets Giants. I think Steelers Jags could have went either way.
Did you pick the
Browns Seahawks?
Did you pick the Giants?
Yeah, I took the Giants.
Yeah, stupid Zach Wilson. Right? I had the Giants.
I took the Giants. We all took the Giants.
Yeah, well, they should have won.
Remember, I was like, did I take the Giants?
Well, hello. We didn't think Tommy DeVito would come in and throw for negative
Danny
8
DeVito
yards.
or Tommy DeVito?
Yeah. I said, yeah.
Literally, brother.
You just bring him out of the stands, like, hey.
In overtime, I was gonna throw some. I'm like, I was so invested because I was like, okay, we've got the Giants here. Let's go. and they didn't throw the ball past the line of scrimmage on 3 downs
Right.
in overtime. It's like, have
Yeah.
some balls. You lost. Why didn't you try something?
And then we flipped the Purdy game, but then Purdy played, right? So I was like, I guess I picked San Francisco because Purdy's playing and freaking the Bengals win.
Right.
But Steve wasn't going to let us change anyway.
Yeah, you can't change after the picks, man. It's locked in. It's locked in. Although we talked about that game, we talked about the Bengals could win that game.
Yeah.
So that it's just hard. It was just hard picking 49ers to lose 3 in a row at home.
Yeah.
Well, then for me, I had the Browns winning, and that was a last second ended game.
That was a coin flip game for me. I took the Seahawks because they were at home, but the Browns could have easily won that game. Panthers won their first game, so there's another surprise, right?
Yeah.
But last week, like we still had a pretty good record, but you look at we could have been, it should have, based on a couple of games, could have been 2 or 3 losses.
Right. Who would have thought Will Levis would have gone crazy?
Yeah.
Thank you for throwing to DeAndre Hopkins so much and someone not playing him.
Well, I just overthought that one. That was my fault because I had him in the lineup till like I don't know an hour before game time, and I just overthought it. Let's see. Let's jump into week 9. Let's get into our picks here. Pull up my picks. All right. So leading off Thursday Night Football. Speaking of Will Levis, Titans at the Steelers. Derek, why don't you lead us off?
Welcome to the NFL, Will Levis. TJ Watt and Highsmith are going to meet you and destroy you. It was a great game by Will Levis, but now they've got tape on him, and the Steelers' defense is really good in the pass rush. I hate saying it because Kyle, Kenny, whatever, Pickett is so bad, but then he'll go throw like a deep. He still throws the ball farther than Garoppolo at least, and he can hit Pickens or Deontay Johnson for some gains. So I got the Steelers winning. It's a home game for the Steelers, so I got the Steelers winning by 3 to cover.
What do you got, Wes?
It's kind of weird when Kyle Pickett goes back and
Cody.
It seems like he like closes his eyes and throws the ball, and he does make some good throws, and then he opens his eyes and he throws picks. So but even at that, no, the Steelers are gonna wreck Will Levis. Everyone's like they really root for Will this week, and yeah, I think the Steelers are gonna their defense is gonna shut them down. I say Steelers by 7.
Well, looks like game 1 we got a swing game because I'm rolling with Will Levis this week. I don't like the Steelers. I don't think they're that good. Their defense is solid. They're Watt undeniable. Highsmith, that part of their defense, especially in the line, is really good. I think Minka's banged up in the secondary. Um, I just it's something about when a guy comes in, plays well. He was that draft guy that got passed up, or he's got a little bit of chip on his shoulder, a little bit of a chip on Will Levis's shoulder. So I'm gonna roll with the Titans here. I'm gonna say the Titans win this game. So
It'd be interesting if the Will Levis doesn't do anything. Your sister might get the upset here.
I know, but I mean, what am I gonna do? Let's see. Dolphins at not at the Chiefs. This is in Germany. What do you got, Wes? Dolphins, Chiefs in Germany.
NFL's so stupid. I mean, playing this game in Germany, 6:30 in the morning.
The
I'm
one
gonna
game we want
go.
to watch, right?
Yeah, well, I'll be up. That's not a problem, but it's just I think the Dolphins are going to come through in this game just because I think for themselves they need it because there's noise that it's great they play good against bad teams, but against good teams they can't come through. I think the Chiefs offense, the receive they just don't look right when it comes to getting the ball to their skill guys. I still think it'd be close, but I think Dolphins edged them. I think they win by 2.
Yeah, this is interesting here because the Chiefs just don't look great to me. I get it. Mahomes had the flu. They're playing in cold weather or whatever. Still Denver. You shouldn't lose to Denver. But they just don't look meshed 100% on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense hasn't looked terrible, but now you're going against, the best offense in the league. So this is a test for the Chiefs, and I don't think they're going to pass. I think the Dolphins win this easily by 10.
It's funny to me. You think about it. If you take the names off these teams and then you look at like records, you're like, this one team lost to the Denver. This other team scored 70 points on Denver. So yeah, I think it's weird to say because he's been hurt a lot this year for the Patriots, but losing Juju Smith-Schuster has hurt them because
Yeah.
he was their go-to receiver that's not Kelsey. Now they got him on. I mean, that's what Vandus Scantling. He's always hit or miss, and
Yeah.
Tony's
Rice.
he's not really a real receiver.
Yeah.
And they got a bunch of guys that are fast, but are stone hands.
They just have no threat, besides Kelsey.
Right. So I mean, so for this one, I got to take the. Of course, we're going to lose this because it's Mahomes, but got to take the Dolphins because, like Wes said, they got to win a game against a good team. So
at some point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all in agreement there. Again, you never know once it's in Germany. Let's see. Vikings at the Falcons. This was a tough one because the Vikings are playing better, but then Cousins goes down. And as like or not like Cousins, without him, that's a huge amount of your offense that you're losing. But then the Falcons just look horrible. They're not throwing the ball to their stars. They're not giving the ball to Bijan, and they got Ritter.
The bench for
So
Heineken.
yeah, well, and I'm a fan of Heineke, so I think that's better for them. So that's why I took the Falcons at home here. It's a close game by 3. Yeah,
I
Derek.
didn't have this game down. But yeah, I'm taking the Falcons because you can't take Jaron Hall with no Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
And you got Taylor Heineke starting for the Falcons, so it's a little bit. But yeah, I just don't understand when you draft Bijan 8th overall, you draft Pitts top 5, and you don't use them.
Drafted London at 8. Did they draft Drake London or maybe 15? 8. It was pretty high. And they haven't thrown him the ball either.
We'll see who Drake London was.
He was at least in the top half of the first round.
Right. He was 8. So
Yeah.
So think about that. You drafted 3 top 10 skill players and you're throwing to Mac Hollins and Jonnu Smith.
Right.
And rushing the ball with Algier.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
What are you doing?
I think their coach, he's playing fantasy, and the other teams have his players.
Maybe.
All right, Falcons. Wes, what do you got?
Yeah, I got the Falcons too. Yeah, Jaron Hall does not inspire confidence. I didn't even know where he was until I realized I did a mock draft with him, and he was like 6th round pick. He was from BYU. I never saw him play at BYU. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Taylor. My dad calls him Heine. I go, no, it's Heineke. I said, no, no, Heineke. He's like, no, it's not. I go, yes, it is.
Let's call him
So I'm going
Heineken.
with yeah, I gotta go Atlanta by 4.
Cardinals at the Browns. Derek, what do you got?
I got to go to the Browns here. I think Clayton Tune is starting for the Cardinals. So that Browns defense is just going to be way too much for a rookie quarterback. Even though I have to start him in my dynasty league because I'm short on quarterbacks. But yeah, I got the Browns by probably 14. No, they can't score either. So I'll go 10.
That's a 6. No, it's an 8-point spread.
It's an 8-point spread.
What do you got, Wes?
Yeah, Tomb's the appropriate name for this because the Browns are going to bury him. So I think the Browns defense is just going to shut them down. Not a lot of points scored this game. We got the Browns though by 8.
Yeah, I think the Browns will cover here at home. Cardinals are 1-7. You know, they're still banged up. Now they get rid of Dobbs. I mean, I don't even know if the Arizona will win another game, to be honest with you.
Although thing with Arizona though is they're in every game.
Well, that's what I mean. Maybe they're like, sweet, we can get something for Dobbs because I thought he was playing well.
Well, they traded him to the Vikings.
I know, that's what I mean. I
For
thought he was
nothing,
playing
really.
pretty
It was like a
good,
sixth
and
rounder.
they just dumped him. That's just weird, you know.
Well,
Uh,
Kyler Murray should be back for week 10. So
yeah, because he's good.
he's good in fantasy, and I need him back.
Right. So I'd definitely go with the Browns here. And I think they'll cover. Let's see, Wes. Rams at Packers.
Game of the week. Well, I gotta go with the Rams by default. I just think the Packers are on a nosedive, and Jordan Love, uh, he does not look like the second coming of Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre. Um, so I think the Rams look bad against Cowboys. That's one thing.
Yeah.
I just think I think it's an ugly game. I think Rams win by 3.
Yeah. It's tough because the Rams have played such a tough schedule. But the problem here with this game is Rams are definitely better than the Packers, but it's in Green Bay, and you don't know if Stafford's going to play yet because he's day to day, you know, and it's a thumb injury. You never want a quarterback with a thumb injury. If Stafford plays, I'd go with the Rams, but at this point, I don't know if he's going to play, so I'm gonna have to roll with the Packers.
Who's the back? Oh, who's the backup for the Rams?
That's the big question. Who?
It's
Heard
not
of him?
what's his name, because he's in like rehab, the Georgia quarterback.
Brett Rippon.
So
Oh, Brett Rippon is the backup. Ooh.
Yeah.
shoot.
But I mean, they're just banged up a little bit. Nakua will probably play, but he's banged up too. Stafford's the problem. I don't know. I don't think Stafford's going to play, so I'm going to go with Packers. What do you got, Derek?
I'm gonna have to switch what I had. I'm gonna have to go with the Packers because I can't, like you said, trust Stafford to play. As they said that he won't need to go on IR. That means he's missing 4 games. That doesn't mean he's not going to miss a few games. And they have Brett Rippon, and then they just signed Dresser Wynn.
Where do they find these guys?
I've never
can't we just get some guys that we know? Like, there's got to be guys that I don't care. Like
Andy Dalton. Sure, Dalton's available.
Dude, Dalton's ready.
Dalton's Dresser Wynn every NFL team. From the Edmonton Elks.
Oh, nice. You might want to play him.
He went to UT Martin.
You never know about those guys. Could be next Kurt Warner.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, this game, it's like you said, it's in Green Bay. I was wondering, I'm like looking at it, I'm like, why are the Packers favored in this game? You don't go against the odds makers. They know something.
Well, Wes is taking the Rams, so looks like we got a sweet
Yeah, he'll probably get us a game. He's, winning.
I know.
So. I don't know.
He'll put a parlay on it.
Yeah. Let's see. You got Commanders at the Patriots. This is tough. I mean, I don't want to bet on the Patriots here, but they're at home, and the Commanders just got rid of their 2 best defensive players. So, Patriots at home, I guess I got to go with them. I'm going to take the Patriots in a close game.
Yeah. I mean, if the Commanders hadn't gotten rid of Young and Sweat, I would have taken them. Mac Jones, Wes, going to go for 400 yards this game. Patriots are favored by 3.5. I think it'll be 3. So they won't cover, but they'll win.
Yeah.
Wes's 2 favorite teams.
Yeah, you're gonna.
I mean, come on.
It's gonna be Wes is going for a tie.
No, I mean, I do have to go with the Patriots just because, the Commanders, they look like they just want to lose right now. They don't care. Patriots do kind of care because Belichick, looks like he wants to go out mediocre, I guess. Doesn't want to go out too bad. So I think Mac will have a decent game. So taking the Patriots by 10.
Also, this is a interview here. Rumor has it the Commanders want to trade for Bill Belichick.
Why, to take over their whole organization?
Yeah.
They can make every decision.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Such a great GM.
If they just basically said, hey, here's the keys to the castle. That's what he wants.
I have no clue. What a desperate franchise that is. They're always looking for something.
I mean, you got to remember they just got purchased, right?
Yeah.
So you got new ownerships in there, right? They want to make a splash. They want to do something to solidify some type of long-term success.
They need to bring Bill Parcells in, right?
Right. He'll probably go back to the Patriots. Let's see, Derek. Bears at Saints.
Sorry, Steve. I got the Saints winning by 10 in this one. It's in New Orleans. The Saints defense really good, and
The Bears defense is not.
Vengeance Cinderella story is going to be ending, and hopefully now your message boards will not be saying even though I saw, because they sometimes pop up and there's people like, well, maybe we should still trade Fields and go with Banjan, and then we can draft guys to build around him.
Yeah.
I'm like, I wanted to be like, you guys are idiots, but
they are. It's bad. And the Bears defense is bad, and their offense is bad.
They got Sweat now, dude. They're not bad.
Yeah. We'll see. What do you got, Wes?
I got the Saints by 14. I would take more points, but I just think Derek Carr will find a way to not. They should beat him by 28, but I think they'll only beat him by 14. So Bears lose by 14.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got the Saints by 10 as well. It could be more, but the Saints haven't been super impressive on offense. Their defense has been solid. And I just don't think the Bears are playing well right now as a team. Bad coaching, uh, bad play calling. The morale is low. And believe it or not, like losing Fields made a big difference for them, and he may not have been perfect, but he was always good for yards. And they just are struggling right now. So can't go into New Orleans and win. It's the future, dude.
Dude, I don't even know what message board.
No, I forgot one, and this is what I loved. It said, well, Badgett he's such a great player. Fields doesn't even want to be there. When you look him on the sidelines, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right. Well, the comparisons. Look, and Badgett's not a bad backup. Like I'll keep him as a backup as long as he wants to stay. Is he QB1? No, absolutely not. He's not. Maybe someday, but not for the Bears. Because if we don't keep Fields, we're not rolling with Badgett. We don't keep Fields, we're drafting a quarterback. So what's the point, right?
What if every other game, right? You get a starter, right? You get Fields back, you bench Fields for Badgett, he comes in as a backup, wins, right?
Yeah.
Rotate that. And he's not never a starter. He's coming off the bench.
Winning games, right?
As Bears fans, we don't need Caleb Williams or Drake May. We've got Badgett.
We've got Badgett.
No,
it's they're it's just a state of turmoil right now. I think they can come together as a team. No, but I don't want them to win a lot of games. Like at this point, why not tank? Even if you're not tanking for a quarterback, you're still getting good top 5 picks.
Stupid Panthers winning games doesn't help.
I know. I'm still confident in them getting the number 1 pick. All right, let's see. West Seahawks at Ravens. This is a tough game.
Yeah, it's a tough game. Just since Baltimore's playing at home, I'm taking the Ravens. It needs to be close, but I'll take the Ravens by 3.
Yeah, I mean, I went back and forth with this one. I end up with the Ravens by 3 as well. At home helps the Ravens a lot, but Seattle 5-2 played against a good Cleveland defense last week. I don't, the Ravens have been a little hit and miss, so we'll see. If they play one of their normal games, they should win. So I'm gonna take the Ravens.
Yeah, I'm back on the Ravens bandwagon here. They're favored by 6. I mean, they destroyed the Lions, and then they beat up the Cards, which you're supposed to do. So I think they're starting to get their run going. With the new offensive coordinator, I think it took a little time for them to start getting in. So taking the Ravens I'm going to take them by 10.
Wow. Covering, huh?
Yeah.
Yep. Bucks at Texans. Oh man. This is a tough one for me too. I'm gonna take the Bucks here. The Texans are very unpredictable, so they could come out and have a great game and win this easily. But I think the Bucks need to win this game. I think if you go 3-5, you really hurt your chances of competing for the rest of the season. Where if you go 4-4, you never know what could happen in that division, right? They're in that kind of division where, I mean, 3-5 won't kill them, but 4-4 will put them in a much better position. So I think the Bucks have to win. So I'm taking the Bucks. By 5, they'll cover.
Yeah, I'm taking the Bucks too. Spread's 2.5. The Texans, because they're at home. You can't lose to the Panthers, and then that's pretty bad. I think, and then Baker, they weren't they on their bye last week? I think the Bucks.
I think so.
So that gives them time to rest, recharge. So I got the Bucks winning by a field goal.
Oh no, they weren't. They were a Thursday night. Remember, they lost the Bills.
Oh right, but that was a close game.
Or did they have a bye?
No, they played against the Bills.
No, the Bill. It was the
yeah.
Hail Mary at the end that could have gone
right.
either way. Pass interference on both teams.
Yeah.
So they still have more time to prepare, though.
Yeah. Wes, what do you got?
I got the Texans by 6.
Swing game.
Texans at home, so we need this one.
I just think their Texas defense is going to come to play. Oh.
Yeah, I mean they're capable. They've just been so inconsistent this year. So that's the problem with the Texans. But they are at home. I think that's helpful. It's helpful for CJ Stroud. So that'll be a good swing game there. Yeah, so we got a couple swing games where Derek, we can make up some ground here on Wes. Let's see what do we got. The Colts at the Panthers. What do you got, Derek?
For you, Steve, I got to take the Colts here. Got to have the Panthers keep losing. Colts are favored by 2.5. Jonathan Taylor is starting to get back into form.
Yeah.
So I got the Colts winning by a touchdown.
What do you think, Wes?
Yeah, I'm taking the Colts too. I think it's pretty not a very exciting game overall, just because of these teams are just kind of not going to go anywhere. But yeah, I think they just win by 5.
Yeah, I got the Colts by a touchdown here as well. The Colts are coming around a little bit. I think Minshew is adequate quarterback. I won't say he's good. I won't say he's bad. He's adequate. And with Taylor playing better, their receivers are picking up. Downs is coming around a little bit. So, I don't know. Look out for the Colts. They might have a late season run here. So I'm going to take the Colts. Let's see. Giants at the Raiders. Wes, what do you got here?
Since Danny DeVito's probably gonna be playing, I'm gonna go with the home team. I think they're going to come out and they're going to play a lot more free, and offensively they'll get the ball to Adams. Well, I'll take the Raiders by 10.
I mean, it's hard not to, right? I mean, even with the coaching change and O'Connell playing, the Giants just what a never would have thought this for the Giants at the beginning of the season.
No, and one more thing about if the Giants do lose the Raiders, it's not going to be good for Daboll. There's going to be way too much noise if they lose the Raiders here after how dysfunctional they are.
Yeah,
it's like, what is wrong with the Giants? What is wrong with Daboll? Like,
I mean, luckily he had such a good first season. He might get another one.
Oh yeah, he'll get.
It is New York though.
Yeah, it
he'll
is
get
though.
another one, but it's just like you're getting there.
He's definitely on the hot seat. He's on the hot seat. Yeah, I know.
You better win next year.
It's New York, dude. You're on the hot seat now.
You got about 4 games next year. You better start off good or you're gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the Raiders here. I think it's gonna be close, just because both teams just don't look good right now. So I'm gonna go with a close game. Raiders win at home, covering at least by 3.
Well, I'm pretty sure Daniel Jones is going to be back for this game.
Yeah, I think he is.
But I'm still taking the Raiders because, yeah, they're going to play so free now, and they're going to be happy out there. And if you look, my gosh, think about that offense. Like, that's a Madden offense. If you could have had Adams, Renfro, Myers, Michael Mayer, Josh Jacobs, right?
But you gotta have Jimmy Garoppolo though.
Or Aiden O'Connell. I'll take O'Connell any day. So, and the Giants traded Leonard Williams away, so they're kind of packing in. So, and Antonio Pierce is playing against his old team, right? The Giants.
Yeah, and Waller, I think, is done. He's turning it in,
Yeah, he's hurt again,
faking a hamstring injury.
Oh, that was the only thing Ziegler did right, is trading Waller.
Yeah.
I mean, that worked out.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. So Raiders will score over 21 points this game, and they'll win by 7.
Wow, that's a bold prediction.
Their offense will score 21 points. Not have like a defensive score.
We'll see. Let's see. Cowboys at Eagles. This is probably the game of the week. As far as toughness to pick, as well as like a game you want to watch. Eagles haven't looked great. Cowboys are the Cowboys. It's at Philadelphia. There's just so much happening, but the Eagles are still 7-1. And I don't trust Dak Prescott at all. So I'm sticking with the Eagles here. I think by 6.
I'm taking the Eagles too. They're more battle tested, I think. They've won games against good teams this year. They beat the Dolphins, so, and yeah, they've lost 1 game. So it's a home game too, so I'm taking the Eagles by 7.
Yeah,
I think the way A.J. Brown's been playing, he's been just playing lights out this season.
Yeah.
I think that just causes a matchup problem, because even if you focus on him, I think they could beat you many different ways. I think it'd be a close game. I'm taking the Eagles by 4.
Yeah, I mean, Cowboys defense still looks good, and the Eagles, as good as A.J. Brown looks, they haven't been blowing people out of the water, I mean, A.J. Brown almost has 1,000 yards receiving already. But you look at the Eagles games, like just last week, for example, like you're in a close game with the Commanders.
Commanders always playing tough, though.
You lose to the Jets. you beat the Rams by 9. You beat the Commanders again only by 3. Week 1, you struggle with the Patriots. The Vikings, you only win by 6. I mean, the only team they significantly beat were the Dolphins and the Bucks.
Yeah.
So I think that allows the Cowboys defense to be in it. But yeah, I still can see Philly pulling the game out. All right, let's see. Bills and Bengals. Here's another one. Derek, is that you?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Bengals. I think they're on their hot streak, and they seem to always have the Bills number. Plus, it's a home game for the Bengals, so I got them winning by just covering, then just by 3.
Tough one. Yeah, Wes.
Yeah, I got the Bengals too. Joey B's back, pretty normal, healthy. Jamar Chase catching touchdowns and doing backflips, trying to say, you know what, Tyree, you can do a backflip too. Come on, man. He's like, I'm top 5 here. So I think it'll be close. I say Bengals by 4.
Man, now you guys want to make me want to change my pick for a swing game. Oh man, I got to roll with the Bengals too. Can't change. Uh, I think the Bengals are on their way back, and the Bills are just they're on the road. They're not great on the road, so I'm going to take the Bengals by a touchdown. Should be a good Sunday night football game though.
Yeah.
All right, Monday Night Football, last game of the week. West Chargers at the Jets.
Um, it's kind of tough for me. I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna go with the Jets just because of their defense and just because somehow the Chargers will find a way to screw up the game because of their coach. Um, yeah, I'm taking the Jets by field goal.
Yeah, this is tough. Um, mhm. I don't know. The Jets defense is good, but even against the Giants, they didn't look great, and the Giants are real bad. Man, I'm tempted to go with the Jets, but I gotta stay with my Chargers pick. I think the Chargers offense does enough to win the game in a close one. So I'm gonna take the Chargers. Yeah, Derek.
The Jets needed to come back 24 seconds left in the game and come back and then go into overtime against a team that had -9 yards passing. So their defense is great, but Herbert's not Danny DeVito. So they got Austin Eckler, Joshua Kelly, Keenan Allen. Got to go with the Chargers here. I have the Chargers winning by 7.
Wow, that's 3 games we can make up on West right there. But then West wins those 3 games. He goes out to a big lead. So West is an important week. Yeah, good picks this week. Should be a good week of football. I like a lot of the games that are up. A lot of interesting storylines happening. That should be fun. Just kind of wrap up here with podcast fantasy football. Derek, that was a big win for you. Knocked me down into second place now. It was Team Knight, the former champion, is just raging lately. Tons of points. He's on a big winning streak. His team's scoring so much. Passed me in total points 4. Um, Big Mike's still winning the league at 6-2. Uh, Team Invaders 5-3. So Wes, you're right there. You gotta stay ahead of Derek. He's 3-5 now.
Wes has got me by 0.18 points. I'm 3-5, and I've got the 4th highest total points. Ridiculous.
Well, and my sister got her first win.
Yes,
so.
that was awesome.
So she's like, I'll be happy just to get a win. Well, she got one.
I'd be happy if she gets 2 wins. One coming this week.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see how my team plays. I made some bad mistakes. Obviously, taking out DeAndre Hopkins was dumb. But we'll see how this week goes. So I got Will Levis starting. Goff is on bye. Fields is still hurt. Could have got like Baker or Heineke, I guess. We got Will Levis going. So fantasies got a little more interesting here. A lot of points being scored. A lot of big games out there. I think that's you imagine if Big Mike had Justin Jefferson not on IR. His team would be unbeatable. It'd be crazy. Cool. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Good week in college football. Good week in NFL. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Appreciate your listens. Especially those Spotify people out there. Thanks for the listens and the impressions. Definitely going up there. So.
And then
All right.
congratulations, Texas Rangers, on winning the World Series today. First time ever.
They winning today. I saw they were winning there.
Yep. Yeah.
So
4 games to 1.
Yep, saw that.
It's nice to have a team that's never won before win.
Yeah, and we have NBA that started too, so NBA season's in full swing. So we'll see how that goes. Did you guys see the NBA tournament?
Yeah. I saw that a couple months ago. So yeah, it starts this Friday.
Right. I was reading about that. That's crazy. That's cool though. I like it.
Dude, there's even a Final Four in Vegas in December.
Yeah.
You have the Final Four.
Awesome. And a trophy and dude, they got it all.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. I was like, that's pretty sweet, I think the NBA needed something like that, shake it up a little bit.
Most of the players will just not play.
Well, it's like it goes on their record, right? It's count the wins and losses counts on the team's record, overall record.
Yeah.
And like every team's in the tournament. And it lasts for like 2 months almost, right? Or a month and a half.
Well, it lasts for a month and a half.
Yeah.
About.
So it's a long one. That should be cool. Should be good to watch. We'll throw that in and see how that goes in a December podcast. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. See you guys next time.